Hey, y'all. Thanks for coming on this Saturday or whenever you're listening to the show. We put out episodes every week, typically Saturday morning. This is the Align to Your Design podcast, where I, Baeth Davis, interview people that I perceive are living on purpose, in their purpose, in a way that is embodied, in that they have become the thing. They are the archetype of what they're here to express. And our guest today, I'm going to share with you her bio right now. She is such an extraordinary woman who has been on such an adventure in the spiritual realms, among the many, many things this incredible woman does. So, per usual, we're going to talk for about 40 minutes or so about her journey. And then we're going to have a look at her human design chart. And today we're going to look at her 5-1 profile manifestor type chart from the perspective of her business. So, with that, I am going to have a look at the bio and share with you about our amazing guest today. Um, our guest is Tomasa Macapinlac. She is a UC Berkeley electrical engineering graduate turned shamanic energy healer. Tomasa has spoken on energy healing for a plethora of platforms, from metaphysical bookstores in California and Oregon, dozens of summits online, and live speaking, including the largest producer of consciousness summits, the Shift Network. You've probably heard of the Shift Network. For the last 29 years, Tomasa has given thousands of private sessions and taught hundreds of classes, teaching people from all walks of life how to become their own healer. Today, she helps closet light workers. We see you, closet light workers, especially those who have found success but burned out in their mainstream careers and have been reluctant to accept their calling as a healer. She helps them embrace their intuitive gifts and align with their cosmic blueprint so they can serve humanity in a big way and feel fulfilled and prosper in their zone of genius. I will be sharing in the description how you can find out more about Tomasa's work, how you can get in touch with her, how you can book a strategy call, book a session, or even work with her longer term. And with that, I'm going to bring on our amazing guest to the Align to Your Design podcast, Ms. Tomasa Macapinlac. Tomasa's coming right on. Align to Your Design. Hey there, Tomasa.
Hi, thank you
Hi,
for
hi,
that
hi. Oh,
introduction.
you're so welcome. And I'm going to pin both of us so they can see us on the show. One moment here. There we go. Okay. Now we're both together. So you are a former engineer
Yeah.
dealing in electricity. And now you're dealing with electricity, but in a different way. So will you
Absolutely.
share, yeah, share with us what being the healer you are today means to you in your own words? What is it that you have become, and what is it that you do with people to help them?
Well, I've almost been doing this 30 years. And so for me, it's evolved over the years. And being a healer today is a little different than it was when I started out almost 29 or 30 years ago, actually. Um, I would say about 30 years ago, I was more concerned about the body. And today, I'm more concerned about all realms of the spiritual world, the emotional component, and the body. Yes, because the body shows us the physical piece, what's going on, and you can equate that to a mental equivalent. I was just talking to someone today about this. Like, you got to look at what's going on with your body. What is the mental equivalent to it, right? And so I find it fascinating to look at the psyche pieces, like what is the pattern that's going on? So one of the things that has evolved for me when I went to Peru in 2012, this is after being initiated as a shaman, I was at a spot called Aliantantambo. And I had already been a healer. Let's see, I started in 1997. So 15 years, I'd already been a healer. But when I went to the site of Ollantaytambo, it's a sacred site in Peru, the rock talked to me, and the rock said to me, you are here to help people step into their life purpose. And you're given a mission and you're like, what? But I'm here healing bodies, right? And so I heard the call. And when I came back to the US after my 10-day trip to Peru, I remember going, how am I going to do that? And so, since 2012, I have been, working on trying to figure it out, but it was always in my face, honestly, because I have been a Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner. And when we translate Jin Shin Jyutsu, it is the art of getting to know thyself. And so if you can just listen to those words again, Jin Shin Jyutsu means the art of getting to know thyself. And that's where I started. And so it wasn't until I went to go speak at an energy healing conference back in November 2023, and I kind of bombed it because I went with a headache program, because I help people with all kinds of things. And my kid went with me, who actually studies human design, and looked at me and said, Mom, you need to go lead with astrology. You got all the keys here. You don't even know it. and I went, what? And I looked, and I had just, invested all this money and sharing with people how to do their headache, get rid of headaches and stuff. She said, Mom, nobody cares about headaches. That's not fun. But astrology is fun. And so I listened to Alexis. That's my firstborn. And the next energy healing conference I went to, I led with astrology and with my modality Jin Shin Jyutsu, because astrology is embedded in Jin Shin Jyutsu, and it also has numerology embedded in it. And so I started to teach from that perspective. Oh, let's bring it all together. And so today, what it has evolved into is me looking at people and assessing them, helping them to assess who they are and look at how far off the blueprint they are, and then activating their blueprint. And activation isn't just once, because if you think about it, when we're out here in the world, we're always collecting energies in our energy field, whether we realize it or not. So it's very important for us to clear out our energy field on a daily basis. And I do that, by the way. So whatever I share here, I practice. I'm not just preaching it. It's something I do. And then the last piece is the alignment piece. And the alignment piece is all this human conditioning that we've been born with, or I shouldn't say born with, that we come into this world and we have taken in, especially from the ages of 0 to 7, that's just buried back in the subconscious mind. See, this is where the shamanic piece comes out. The shamanic piece is like, let's go look at these pieces that are buried in the subconscious world that keep you on autopilot and keep you from living your highest potential. And so what I do is I clear people so they can get aligned with who they're here to be. So they're not living with this conditional stuff that they've learned since they've been birthed and incarnated this lifetime. So that's how I am a healer today. It started out as body, and now it's like all of it together. Like, how do we put it all together so people can live their highest potential?
So what would you say is the most difficult thing you've had to radically transform for yourself in doing this work?
Oh, that's a $10 million.
Or tell us one. Tell us one of the many.
There's a lot of things I would say that I've had to radically transform for myself. And I would say, I've done it, and then it comes back around for another layer. And I would say, prosperity. I would honestly say prosperity. I didn't grow up in, with a silver spoon in my mouth. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and my father sent me and my sisters to Catholic school because he felt like that was the best thing he could do for his girls, right? I'm the youngest of 4 girls. And so, going to UC Berkeley was a big deal for me. And when I came out, I'm the person, UC Berkeley is one of the top engineering schools,
Mhm.
electrical engineering schools in the world, right? And so when I chose to go there, it was like I went there because it was a top school, a top-notch school. And so, but it also kicked my butt.
Mhm.
And so I went there and I was just talking to someone about this last night, like, hey, you know what? It might have done that, but you know what? I came out of it and I'm fine. But I'm the type of person who kind of goes for it, like very ambitious. And so when I got out of school, I went for it. And then I discovered that, I wasn't crazy about engineering.
Mm.
And it wasn't so much the engineering piece. I think it was more like I'm a people person. I love helping people. And I've been doing that since I was probably, since I was in the workforce, serving, tutoring people, teaching them. And when I discovered this about myself, I was like, oh, I got to figure out what my life purpose is, which is kind of funny because that's what I've been put on this earth to help people figure out their life purpose. And so for me, what happened is I did very well in the engineering field. I worked in Silicon Valley, did very, very well, was the big breadwinner for my family when I was married with children. I mean, I still have children, but when I was married. And then I decided to make the leap because one day in corporate America, I was not feeling well health
Mm.
wise. And so burnout hit me along with a virus that I couldn't kick. And that's when I discovered Jin Shin Jyutsu. Went to doctors. Doctors couldn't really help me. But I have a client who was then, a colleague who referred me to someone who did Jin Shin Jyutsu. And so that's why I say Jin Shin Jyutsu is the activation piece, because when I lied on the table to receive Jin Shin Jyutsu, my whole life flashed before me, showing
Mm.
me, oh, Tomasa, you've been put off the path here. You were on the path to figure out what you were here to do. And you got sidetracked, got married, had kids, and then just, went through the rat race, right? And did very well. But, was I fulfilled is the question. And so that just began opening the doors for me as I received that message when I'm receiving my first Jin Shin Jyutsu session. I looked at that practitioner just as she finished the session with me. I said, I don't know what you did, but I'm coming back. And what it felt
Mm.
like was I was being plugged into the source. And so I began to see her on a weekly basis. For about 6 months, I did that. And then at the 6 month mark, she said, Tomas, I'm teaching a self-help class. Do you want to attend? And I thought about it, I'm like, sure, maybe this will cut back from me having to come here every week, right? And so I went to go take class. I had no idea that I would be, interested in becoming a practitioner. It kind of just all evolved organically. And so what happens, I went to class. It was near my work. And so I was waiting one evening to go take class. And there was a coworker who came in and she had a stiff neck. She'd gone to the chiropractor. She was an avid believer in going to the chiropractor, but the chiropractor couldn't help her, gave her exercises. So I looked at her and I said, Sid was my practitioner's name. I go, Sid probably can help you. Well, what little I had known from a few classes, I put my hands on her. She could feel something going on, and my whole body heated up. And she looked at me and she said, Tomasa, you're a healer and you don't even know it. And I said, huh? What? I couldn't fathom it. And so I went to class that evening and I told Sid what had happened. And she looked at me and she said, sounds to me like we got us another Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I had a lucrative career in Silicon Valley, right? And so something must have hit me because at the break, I went to Sid and I said, hey, I want to know what it takes to get certified to do this. I figured, hey, it's not going to hurt to figure it out, right? To get the information. So she gave me the information, passed it on to me, and I sent for a brochure. Next thing I know, this was in November of 1996. In January of 1997, I went to Santa Rosa and took my first class. And I was just like glued, taking notes from a former nurse. I won't say she was retired. She was a former nurse who was teaching the class. And she had this will on her. She was, listen, I didn't even ask who to take class from. I just chose her. So, everything is divine intervention, divine connection, right? But she was perfect for me because she had that will that was like, if something, comes to me, somebody has a problem, I'm going to solve it, darn it, right? And that's the type of person too. And so I went, I like her and I want to be just like her. So anyway, I took copious notes. And after I left class, I went and got a massage table and I started working on friends and family every weekend, whatever it took to understand this healing art, because it was more like learning by kinesthetic, by experience. And then, at about the 7th month mark, because most people finish studying in about 18 months, but for me, it was 7 months. I was on the fast track, apparently. And so people were trying to pay me to work on them. And it's like, no, no, no. And my practitioner at the time said, Tomasa, it's the universe telling you it's time to get paid to do it. I was like, huh? Okay. So everything was just organically happening, right? And so I started working on folks in an office in Los Altos at the time, Los Altos, California. And I shared it with my practitioner at the time. And then I moved to another office, and then I came back. It's so funny, when I came back to that office, my practitioner had stopped working, had retired or decided to do something else, but I took over that office. And that's when I went full time. But I was in the corporate world, had one foot in the corporate world and one foot in the holistic world for about 4 years. I had a 5-year plan, but about the 4th year, my soul was screaming to me, what are you doing? You can't continue like this, right? And so it was like, if you don't take the leap, you are going to pay for it, right? And so I heard it loud and clear. And the funny thing about it, we had just bought a brand new house, brand spanking new house. And my husband looked at me and said, what are we going to do? And I said, well, you got to step up. And I basically took the leap and I never looked back. And I have to tell you, when I took that leap, because I wasn't in the same job when I first started learning Jin Shin Jyutsu, I wasn't at the same company, but there was a layoff that had happened. And, people were transported to other jobs, and I was like, well, I don't really want to do this. I tried it out and it was like getting a parachute, like an executive parachute, but I can't even explain it. It was the thing. It was like God telling me, or the universe telling me, everything's going to be fine. We're taking care of you. You see, you're supposed to do this. So when prosperity happened that way, prosperity happened when I was an electrical engineer. Actually, I was in high-tech sales in Silicon Valley. And then my business, I just kind of coasted a little bit with it. And then I finally took some business training with Thrive. And so anyway, they weren't called that then. And so I finally took some business training with them. And then my business began to grow. And I remember hitting the 6-figure mark. And what year was that? About 2011. And things just started taking off. And then when I got a divorce, everything went. And part of it was because I got financially scammed. And that's when the whole prosperity thing hit me again, like, what the heck, right? And so ever since that financial scam, I've been crawling my way back up. And I've had some really great times, and I've had some like, okay, I know I'm going to get through it. So, and I think part of it is, it's a reason that it happens. And I don't want to just say the condition is there, but part of it is like, oh, it's for me to help understand people who have been in my position, who have not had prosperity in their lives, or who are struggling with it. So
yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, sometimes the financial setback is there to keep you motivated. Because a lot of us, given the nature, I believe this has been my experience too, having gotten divorced and it was a financial mess, is that the work that we do is very challenging. By its very nature, it's very confrontive, it's emotional. We often have people in their most vulnerable states confessing to us or leaning on us, whatever it might be, for support. And I sometimes think that, as healers, we're so very intuitive and therefore very sensitive that sometimes if we didn't have these challenges and we just had the money, we wouldn't do it. And we probably would die anyway. And so my sense is what will happen is when you're fully committed, when there's absolute faith, like one day at a time, this is your life, as mundane as it can be sometimes, as repetitive and boring and frustrating as it can be sometimes. It's showing you that you are in fact committed to doing this work. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the shamanism doesn't care about how much money we have in the bank. I mean, the way the system is set up is so distorted. It's so out of alignment with the way most of us are wired that to actually be financially stable without compromising your body, I think that's the new healing. And so I would offer to you, this is just my intuitive hit with you, is that you are on the cusp of a financial renaissance, and it really doesn't have a lot to do with money. It has to do with your commitment and your faith.
Yeah.
To not be concerned with the physical as much, which is challenging, I mean, the way I look at it, this is just a chapter. So, you may as well go for it. Go for broke, as they say. I'm always surprised when people leave a lot of money when they die and stuff. I'm like, why? Give it to your kids, give it away, spend it all. Right. So anyway, I think it's very, very powerful you shared that, because we can be at this work for decades and still hit financial snags, right? Like I got sick. It was part of my learning. Like you're dealing with the money. I got sick and I knew that illness was there to teach me things, right? And so, all right, I have another question for you. So let's just jump tracks now over to the astrology.
Do that. I'm a Gemini, so
yeah. So what about? So you were an electrical engineer. You got called to shamanism, but then you got divorced, and your finances went, and you're still doing the shamanic work, which is a testament to your commitment. How does the astrology fit in to all of this? And how did you learn about astrology? How did you get introduced to it? And what would you say is the best thing you've learned about it? Just for you. Let's just talk about you now, because it's sometimes challenging for the transpersonals to talk about themselves. We're very good at deflecting. So what was it about astrology for Tomasa?
So astrology is very important. When I was about to go through a divorce, I got a couple astrology readings. This is back in like 2010. Yeah, it's back 2010. I got a couple astrology readings. I got one. I remember the first one I got. And then there was another astrologer I started letting her read. So every year I would get an astrology chart. And so, you can't just read my chart and not understand what you're talking about, right? That's not me. I got to dig in, what's she talking about? What exactly is that? So I started dissecting my own charts when I had them read, even the transits, right? And so, I want to say I started facilitating the medicine wheel in 2017, and my kid, I gotta love my Aquarius rising kid, was doing charts, which is studying them, right? And so we started diving in together to study charts. Oh. And they were reading charts of some of my students. Oh, look at this. Da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, what are you talking about? And it started to become part of looking at someone's chart to understand who I'm working with, right? That was important to me. So I started looking at their charts when they started to come to work with me on the medicine wheel, because I want to understand, who am I working with and how do I work with them? And so that was the start of studying charts. And sure, did I take a couple of astrology classes? Yes, but it was a deep dive. It was me just looking at charts and studying them. And, you know, many people take astrology class. You can take a class all you want, but when you actually study charts, and especially someone you know, that is the deep dive to understanding why this is happening, right? And that's what I tell people. You really want to understand astrology? Study people's charts, you know, because you'll understand it then. And so I started doing that. And one year, one of my shaman friends, she was a shaman colleague. She didn't go through the wheel with me, but I probably assisted one of her wheels that she was on. And she came to me one day and she said, Tomasa, I want to work with you. I want you to read my chart. How much you charge for that? I'm like, huh? Charge for chart readings, right? I'm thinking this to myself. I didn't say it to her. So I'm making up a price as we go. Well, Tomasa, this is your first, you know, official reading you're doing for someone. And so I said, okay. And so I gave her a price and I read her chart and she felt really satisfied with it. And then it just started growing like that. And it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess you do understand how to read charts, right? And so what also people don't understand is like, I might read a chart, but there is something we call shamanic tracking. And so you can understand someone's chart, but when you're tracking, you can understand it on a different level. So when I'm reading charts, it's like I'm in another dimension looking at you on a very different level than maybe some astrologers might look at you. And so I'll look at it that way and I'll go, wow, you're right on. You know, I just had this experience recently. Someone came for astrocartography with me and they had somebody else read their chart who did the whole science. So there's different ways to read charts, you know. I do a very complex way called Placidus, you know. And so Placidus is not like, oh, one sign in one house. That's not going to happen, you know, if you understand anything about astrology. But Placidus is very complex. And so for me, when we look at, you know, how I just started reading charts, well, first of all, someone read my chart that I was working with, and she said, Tomasa, you have Pluto in the 8th house. You know what that means? I'm like, no. And I remember her saying, you know, that's the markings of a shaman. And so I think that began me really owning being a shaman. But not only just that, I also have I know you read hands, you know, you do hand analysis. So when I had a hand analysis chart read in 2010, I want to say, she said, you have the markings of a shaman in your hands. I'm like, really? Okay. So it's like, yeah, okay. And that's when I was going through the medicine wheel. So that wasn't my first time of, you know, being initiated as a shaman. My very first mentor, she wasn't the right mentor for me, but I went to her and, you know, I learned a lot about shamanism and I kind of put it on the shelf like that's too much, right, to handle because it's out of this world. But when Sandra read my hands, she said, Tomasa, you have the markings of a shaman in your hands. Huh? Really? Okay. And so then, you know, when somebody else read my chart, because these are cosmic blueprints, right?
Right.
Human
Yes, they are.
design,
Yes.
astrology, read your hands. These are all cosmic blueprints. And so when somebody else read my astrology chart many years ago and she said, you're the markings of a shaman, I said, well, you're the second person who says I have the markings of a shaman. Well, I guess I better own it. And I began to own it, you know, like, you know, because it was just like to me running in the background, just doing it. Right. And, you know, I even have my beloved says to me, you always see the dark side. I'm like, yeah, that's what shamans do. They see the dark side so that they can help transform it. And that's really what I do. And so I see patterns. I see the dark pieces. And I was like, this needs to be transformed if you want to be aligned with who you're here to be, right? And that's kind of how it has evolved for me for reading charts. It wasn't like, oh, Tomasa, you know, go take this class. It was like, no, I want to understand myself first. You always have to understand yourself first. Just like when I teach Jin Shin Jyutsu to people, you can work on yourself before you work on others. And that's what I learned when I went to take the class with Sid. I worked on myself first. And you start to feel the differences just working on yourself. And then you can go and apply it to others. But there's just so much has evolved from it. It's very, there's a lot of, factors that contribute to it. And I don't know any other way to say that. So,
Well, how would you define shamanism?
shamanism, I kind of said a little bit like shamans, what they do is they see the dark pieces or the shadows that need to be transformed. That's one aspect of it. But also, shamanism is a healer or a sage, which we sometimes use that word interchangeably, who works in multi dimensions to heal.
Mm.
So it's not just in this physical world. We work in the mental, emotional level. We work in the spiritual world. And I would say the very spiritual world. I am a vessel for spirit. I am not the doer. I am the vessel. And that's how I look at it. Because that, one of my students got some coaching from me like almost a year ago. And sometimes I'm channeling and I don't even know what I said to her. But she says that I told her that she was going to own a gemstone business. When that kind of channeling happens, that's like what we call claircognizant.
Mm-hmm.
Like the information comes through you and it's done. You gave it away. You delivered it, and boom, you have no recollection of it. Well, she says, Tomasa, you said I was going to start a gemstone business. And I told you no way. And so the next day after I told her that, her job responsibilities got reduced because that was in the way of her owning that gemstone business. No way. And then 2 days later, the person she buys gemstones from calls her and says, I'm having an out of business sale, going out of business sale. And she's like, what? She's like, Tomasa said I was going to start a gemstone business.
Wow.
And she says to the person, would you be interested in selling that business? And the person says, oh, absolutely, yes. And they make the deal. And my student just took off in June of last year and just, she's like, Tomasa. And I'm like,
That's super.
My ego's not tied to it. I'm very elated and happy for her, but it's like, I'm not going to say I'm the one who told her to do that. It's more or less like it was information that was given to me and I just delivered it. Right.
Yeah.
So ego is not involved with the shaman. Let's be quite honest with it. Ego is not involved. It's more like, okay, I'm going to help this person be the best, the highest potential they can be. And so, here she thought she was supposed to show up one way as a healer, and then it came this other way. And so, and she's loving it. She has so much passion for it. She's not ready to quit her job, but her soul will start screaming at her soon, believe me. And so she's like, okay, all right, I can get into this. I can pay my mortgage with this, So she's doing quite well. And so those are the kinds of things I could say a shaman does. A shaman just kind of sees beyond the surface, and knows, hey, this is what you need to do. Deliver the information. We're conduits for spirit, for the spirit world. Yes, I do all kinds of things. I do ceremonies. I give out rites. I do shamanic sessions. And let me tell you, when I do shamanic sessions, I love them. I don't have to prepare for them. I'm just a conduit for spirit. It shows up and I know exactly where to hit the nail on the head. Like, okay, we need to go this direction. And they go, okay. And the next thing they know, they're like, wow, that was amazing. Like, I feel so much clearer. I'm like, so it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a conduit for the spirit world for people to live their highest potential.
I think you explained it quite well, actually. Yeah, very well. Good, since you do that work. Tell us about the closet light workers. Like what?
Well, I was one.
What for your clients, like, or you even like? Let's start with you. What made you stay in the closet initially? What was it that kept you there?
I want to say it's society, it's family stuff. It's the stigma of you got to go to college, get a good job, and and collect a salary. And that's what we call like financial security, right? Is stable. But your heart might not be in it. It might be like, oh, I'm doing this just to pay the bills, right? Because it works. But I had gifts and I didn't know I had the gifts until I started looking at them. They were very subconscious. I would know where to put my hands on people subconsciously, right where they needed some healing. And they would go, oh, that feels so good, Tomasa. But I knew I didn't want to be a massage therapist. And I don't know why. It's just like massage therapy just was not my thing. It's like, no, although I do a body work called Tui Na, which is different. It's got to be different and unique for me because of who I am. That it moves the chi in the body, right? That's what Tui Na does. It's based on Chinese medicine. And so, anything I do works with chi. Chi to me is translated as life force, not energy, life force. There's a difference. Energy, yeah, sure. That's just our American way to translate it in English, right? But it's really life force. When we're working with a chi in a body, we're working with the life force. The life force is that godlike energy running through your veins, running through your breath, It is God, actually. I don't want to say godlike. It is God. It is the universe. It is spirit in action. How do we wake up every morning? Just knowing how to breathe and our heart beating. That's all, that's all automatic. That is God, the universe, life force. So I knew where to put my hands on people to help them because I would just do it. And they were like, oh, that feels so good, Tomasa. But I was like, I am not becoming a massage therapist. No. But when I was introduced to Jin Shin Jyutsu, it became a yes. And you know why? So Jin Shin Jyutsu is like putting two hands on people is like being a jumper cable. So is that electrical engineering? You bet it is. And so I am still an engineer. And one of my clients told me that one day, you're still an engineer. You're just a human engineer now. And so I was like, yeah, I kind of like that. Do I regret going electrical engineering school? Not at all. It helped me become who I am today. It helps me to understand the body in many ways. I didn't study biology at all when I was in college or high school. I didn't study until I became a body worker, right? Physiology of the body, those kinds of things. And so it was like, oh, okay, I can do this now. But I think I had to understand the electrical pieces of it first to, make it work for me.
Yeah.
So closet light workers are people who have innate abilities. They might be aware of it. They might not be aware of it. And many are aware of it. Many of them might dabble in the healing arts or I hear a lot of Reiki because I go speak at energy healing conference. So I hear a lot of Reiki. Oh, Reiki this, Reiki that. And so I kind of go, okay, well, what are you doing? And then they tell me they have a different job. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I've actually had people say to me, yeah, I know how to do that, but I can't step out into that world. It's like, oh, really? Okay. So the closet light workers are people who have gifts. They dabble in the energy healing field somehow, some way. They have interest in it. Because before I even became a healer, there was this Filipino healer who would come to this metaphysical center and he would do psychic surgery. That is a form of shamanism too, by the way. And so, because we remove entities all the time, we remove crystallized energy, right? As a shaman. And so little did I know, I was like, oh, okay, I find that interesting. But I remember taking a chakra healing class with him. He would show you, how to work with the chakras. It wasn't Reiki. He didn't call it that. He just said, it's a chakra balancing class. So we learned how to do that. And so I was interested in that. I remember my sister would come home from, she's a school teacher and she would come to visit and I would, I go, here, I'm going to help you lift up your energy. And I would do the chakra stuff that I learned on her. She's like, wow, that really helped. Right. But those are like, things I'm just dabbling in, right? but I was still in engineering, working for some
Mm-hmm.
engineering company. And so, anyhow, so you're dabbling in the healing arts, so you're dabbling with, chakras or meridians or whatever. And you're just playing with it, but you have an interest in it, but you're not going to tell everybody about it. I knew when I started sharing Jin Shin Jyutsu in my workforce with my boss, hey, go do this on yourself. This will help you. That worked. I knew I was going to leave that industry because
Right.
I was just outright about it, right?
Yeah.
But, before that, I would just, innately know things, but didn't really equate it, understand it, right? I wasn't that deep then, let's put it that way. And so I guess the most interesting thing is that closet light workers are in the closet. They have these abilities. They haven't really looked at them deeply. Um, some of them have, and some of them will just put it off to the side because it doesn't offer to them stability. And so then they just leave it, and they'll work on their friends and family, and that's about it. But they won't
Mm-hmm.
go beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyone who's attached to stability is in for a rough ride up ahead. That's what I was going to say about
Well, I agree with
that.
that.
I mean, like
So
stability is such an illusion, isn't it? But I get it. People will often
yes, well, the
choose
funny thing about
that.
it is, have you we're splitting timelines soon.
Well, I've been on a different timeline my whole life. So, it doesn't feel any different to me, but I can see as the solar system is shifting so rapidly, and we're having astrological transits that no astrologer's ever seen in recorded history, right? At least in recorded history. Someone I heard online that I think the closest they could find was like 12,000 years ago, and it still wasn't exact what we're experiencing now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So when you say we're splitting timelines, what does that mean to you? Because I think from what I've observed, people have some very strange ideas about this. Like they think they're going to lift into the rapture, or suddenly they're going to, their bodies are going to become new again. But what is it to you?
It's a frequency. It's a frequency change. And I think we all go in and out of different frequencies all the time. It just depends. But I think we've been feeling that big frequency change since, I want to say, 2020. I've been feeling it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's like people are coming and going out of our lives.
Yes.
And so, it started happening in 2020, I want to say. It was like, people say this, and it's like I have no time for that anymore. It's not to be arrogant or anything like that. It's just like that frequency just does not jive with me. And so, I have to let you go. And it's not necessarily that you tell them that you have to let them go. You just kind of, bye.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that energy anymore. And this is what's going to happen with the timeline split. So the way Edgar Casey says it, 1/3 of the light workers going to the new timeline. And how will you know? Someone asked me, how will you know? Because you're feeling uprooted, right? And so you feel your root chakra. And it's so funny because a couple of weeks ago, I started feeling, and it's not even above the waist. It's like from the waist down, you'll feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I was like, what is wrong with my foot and my leg, my buttocks? What is going on here? Right. So, of course, I know how to work it with energy. So, I was fine in a day. Right. And then, another, it's like, really, my coccyx is bothering me today. What's going on? Oh, that must be that uproot piece coming. Right. It's happening. It's real. So you'll feel that. And then also, if you've been going through something, I want to say 2012, that Mayan calendar, 12/21/2012 is where a lot of people, that was another shift going on. So, and that's when I got the financial, scam stuff happening that year in 2021, or excuse me, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
it's 12/21/2012. And so I started to feel all that, and so it made me have a different faith, like you're saying, being committed to your work, because I never went to go get a job, never. Even though it was very tempting, it's like, no, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing, so I'm going to do it. And I have faith that God brings it forth, right? And that's what I did. And it has served me, and it has helped me to have faith. Like, even those times are like, okay, God, I got to do this. How's this going to happen? And then it comes through. So, timeline split is not about, oh, I'm going to dissipate into another ether, leave this earth. It's more like the frequencies are changing. The frequency at which you operate is changing. And then if you think that before, there are some people you're like, oh, I just can't relate. Well, it's going to be even more so. The people who are not coming to that timeline probably won't have a relationship with them. And I think the reason why a third of the light workers are being chosen is because these are the light workers who understand and who will help reshape the world.
Well, it is a lovely story, isn't it? Because, the way I look at it, Tomasa, we're all on a different timeline. Like, I'm on my own timeline. I've always, but I do sense that there is a shift, but I still don't understand it. Like, when you say timelines are shifting, like, what does that actually mean? Like, can you make it practical? Because I hear people say these things, oh, we're going 3D, 5D. Well, 5D is sound. The fifth dimension is sound. It is my voice right now is 5D. So the way I've explained it to myself, and I'd love to hear your comment on this, is that 5D is sound, and what's being asked of us is to be authentic with our voice. And so to me, the timeline splitting are the people that choose to drop their not self, to use a human design term, to drop who they really aren't, to come out of the closet and actually use their authentic voice, even if they can't use their voice, even if they're mute, share their point of view with the world, like you're doing right now, like we're sharing who we are now as beings. And then there's going to be a lot of people wandering around lost, looking for guidance that they're not going to get because they're not in tune with their inner guidance, right? Most people project. The majority, I mean, even in our spiritual community, all this crap coming out, I won't name names, but like all this stuff coming out. And I'm like, well, yeah. And it's just shown me that the majority of people who call themselves healers and intuitive have no idea what's going on. Zero, still giving their power away. I'm like, if you didn't know that guy was a bad guy 20 years ago, you're not paying attention to yourself.
I hear what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like people are still touting and promoting people who, I'm sorry, are criminals. And so, I've just been actually very more rudely awakened to this sense of, I would like to see people get on their own authentic timeline. And when you say split timelines, that's how I experience it. Like, there's people that are going to be on their authentic timeline using their correct voice. And then there's going to be the majority of people doing what they've always been doing, which is looking for someone to be their daddy or mommy.
Their savior.
Their savior. Yeah. Right.
That's what they're looking for. Their savior, right, instead of being their own savior.
Well, that's what we've been conditioned, though. People have been told there's saviors out there. People actually think Jesus is going to come back. Like, I'm like, okay, like, hello, folks. Like, they take this shit literally. And I don't have patience for it. So I feel very bad for those people because they're not jumping any timelines. All right. So before we get into your chart, I wanted to say for all the listeners, we'll look at your chart and then I'll share about your upcoming offers and links. And I appreciate letting me rant a little bit because it wasn't directed at you. It's just one of the things that's so amazing about you is that whenever we talk, you get me thinking in a different way. You really challenge me to understand deeper what is happening. And so you started feeling this shift for yourself in 2020. And what would you say has been the biggest reward so far? And then my second question would be, what's been the hardest thing about feeling the bifurcation in humanity of basically people waking up to who they are as individuals and people still looking for a savior, looking for a daddy, looking to be rescued by someone or something else. Good news, bad news for
Well, I
Tomasa.
would say the easiest thing for me that has happened with 2020 is, or what has happened that feels good is freedom. Freedom.
Mm,
And freedom to be who I need to be. Um, and not feel, like I have to please people.
yeah, yeah.
And it's one of the things that my students feel when they take the medicine wheel with me is this authenticity. Like, all this transparency and authenticity just comes out because when you're transparent, you feel free.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to please someone or to pretend to be someone you're not.
Mm-mm.
You
Right.
just are who you are. You show up. What's the hardest thing? I don't know. That's an interesting question. And maybe it's letting go, even family members. Even
Yeah.
family
It's
members.
painful, isn't it?
It is. It is. It has been painful. But I have to tell you, when it did happen, it's like, will I ever come back to, allowing them in my life? It's been like, they'd have to come back on this frequency with me. They'd
Well,
have to,
don't hold your breath. Don't
I
hold your
think I'm
breath,
gonna go,
Tomasa.
oh no, I can't let them in. I can't let
Yeah.
them in.
No, no, no. Maybe one or two of them will straggle on back and go, you were right. I'm here. But
Maybe,
yeah, maybe. I mean, you did all
maybe.
you could. I know you did all you could to help them. But, you know, I left my family when I was 18. Like I just walked away. And I have a few family members I still talk with. But even to this day, well, you know how it is. We 5-1s, we 5-1 profiles. I mean, who sees us? I mean, we're lucky if we see each other. We're probably just projecting back and forth, being two mirrors. You know what I mean? I'm kidding, but not really. We don't get really seen anyways. So it's a tall order for us to even be seen by anyone, never mind family and friends. It's really, really tough. And I will say, from a spiritual perspective, I wonder if you've had this thought. I've had some very lonely moments knowing I'm not going to have the kind of relationships that are advertised, because most people don't stick around once the projection crashes. It takes a very strong person, right? Once we've been knocked off the pedestal for them to own, like, oh, maybe I put you in a very small box. Because the thing for you and I, if we're mad, people think we're mad, angry people, right? If we're sad, they think we're depressives, right? It's just, we get stamped from that one impression. So yeah, family. I think it's really good though that people are walking away from what's not in their fractal, because most of us aren't born to families that are even our fractal. They're there to reproduce us. I don't get along with my family. I mean, I love my mom, my dad, my sister, but we're not chummy. We're all on a very different trajectory, and it's not together. And we're all alphas, all four of us. We're all dominant personalities, all four of us, right? We're all outspoken. Yeah. Anyway, but everybody's on a different track. All right. So is there anything else you want to be sure to inform us about before we look at your chart? And we're going to look at your chart from the perspective of business as you requested. Yeah, but is there anything else you want to inform me or our viewers about?
I can't think of anything.
All right. Okay.
It might come up while you're doing it.
Okay. So I want to say to everyone watching, one of the things I do with our guests is I ask them before we come on, what is one thing in your chart you want to know about? Because we have about 10, 15 minutes here. So I'm going to bring up your chart. Okay, that's not the right one. Let me do that again. Two charts here. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Should be a photo. Do you see that?
I do now.
Okay. So I'm going to zoom in here. So you are 5-1 profile, which is this line right after the personality sun and earth, and then a one line after the design sun and earth. And you're the left angle cross of separation. So the first thing I like to share with someone when we're talking about business in the chart is the profile is the costume and the incarnation cross is your assignment. The 5-1's job is basically the publicity department for whatever you've deeply investigated, right? So the 1 line is going deep, 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 deep. And the 5th line is the heretic sharing what they've discovered. And so what you're discovering over here in the design sun and earth is gate 22, which is grace, and gate 47, which is suffering. Well, suffering realization, if you will, you know.
I like that better.
Yeah. Well, the thing is for you, your power is in sharing about suffering, not talking about it. That's why I was pressing you a bit, even though I didn't remember that in your chart. I looked at your chart before the call, but it all comes back to me. I studied it before the call. But what you're really here to talk about the foundation of suffering, the depth of suffering. And it's mental, right? Because 47 is off the ajna, right? It's off the neocortex. So the root of suffering is mental. And you have it in line 1, so it is about the body, right? So your genius is helping people recognize that the suffering in their body starts with a narrative in their mind, that they're putting together the pieces incorrectly, or they're making up a story that's not serving them. So in many ways, you help people deconstruct the narrative that keeps them from grace. Now, you do embody this. The design sun is where we embody a frequency that others see, right? So when you walk in the room, what people see is this gate 22 off the solar plexus. It's about, you're a great host, you're a great greeter. You know, if you're doing an event, it's ideal if you're the host, the promoter, right? And it may even involve some mundane things like being the MC, like setting up an environment where you're the MC and you're highlighting other people, greeting people at the front door, sending them handwritten thank you notes. I call this the Jackie O gate, you know, or the even Eartha Kitt. Remember Eartha Kitt? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So sexy. Like you're so sexy but so graceful. And that's how I think of her. So, you know, Eartha Kitt, Jackie O, pick your person. Yeah. So you radiate grace. And that's what people feel in your body. And your genius is to help people get down into the roots of their psychological trauma. So, of course, you have to be in the roots of yours. Yeah, you have to be in the roots of yours. Yeah. So let's look at this business piece. So the personality sun, it's been said, ooh, my mouse is a little squiggly. Sorry about that. The personality sun represents essentially the Godhead or the light in the lighthouse. So for each of us is a lighthouse. Some of us are more like ambulances, right? We're moving with our light. I'm more like an ambulance, you know, not a chaser, but an ambulance. You're like a lighthouse. And so the lighthouse is spreading the light, and you're doing it through making progress. So you're meant to be very adventurous. You know, things will get very stagnant for you if you're not on the move. Right? So I take it back. You're like me, you're not a stationary light. You're a moving light. Some people are stationary, right? So there's a lighthouse on the coast and that light sits there in that lighthouse. But for you, your brand, if you will, your personality sun is gate 35, which is a voice gate. And it's line 5, right? And you've got a down arrow. So there could be some resistance to this purpose, but essentially you're here because it connects to gate 36. You're here to travel and speak and help people heal the crises, particularly sexual crises in their relationships. You're like a relationship expert. Yeah. Like a real relationship expert. I'll come back to that, but for starters, you know, and then the next place I like to look. So let's just say that's your brand. Okay. It is your brand, progress. So gate 35 is here to, well, in your case, it's a manifested channel. So the thing about you being a manifester is you don't want to operate like a generator, projector, or reflector. You don't want to wait to be asked. You have to tell people, right? So when it comes to prosperity, you need to say to people, I want to inform you, I think it'd be a good idea if you worked with me. Here's why. It's not a question. It's a command, right?
Okay.
You need to command. And if there's any place I'd encourage you to come out of the closet, it's like, you're not here to be sweet. It's not, you're not, I mean, you're graceful, but you are really very, very strong and naturally a badass leader. You're a badass leader. And you have so much power in you. But let's have a look. Let's just have a look at what this down arrow is about. Okay. I'm just going to stop the share for a minute and get your other, go to your other chart because it's in there. I just want to keep the details off the screen. So we go there. Okay. All right. This will be interesting. Because the down arrow doesn't mean bad, right? It just means yin. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. It means yin.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to bring this up on the screen and show you what Ra wrote in his line description. Okay. So here's your chart. All right. So here's your personality sun, right? And the keynote is altruism, sacrifice of personal for communal progress.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the attribution, the principles of interaction and harmony communicated successfully for the benefit of the whole. Progressive communication that can bring beneficial change to the whole. So it's a collective gate, right? It's for humanity. And then the detriment, although altruistic and cooperative in general, a personal regret that in interaction, a greater personal expansion had been lost. Progressive communication, but always the sense that personal progress has been sacrificed. So you kind of touched on that earlier, right? When you talked about the setback of the prosperity during the divorce. And so what I would encourage you is to not talk about it. That's what this is saying. Like, don't even talk about it. Don't give it any energy. Like it's almost, and this is just from your chart, right? It's not like me. I'm just translating this. This isn't, don't shoot the messenger. I know you won't, but I'm trying to be funny. Okay. Yeah. But really, don't shoot the messenger. You could have this personal regret that your personal expansion was lost. So you very much are designed, the less you think about yourself, the better. You're not really here to figure out Tomasa. It's not your role. You're here to be like a servant to humanity. And being the servant isn't always the easy role. It isn't. It isn't easy to be the second class ticket. But the more you are sacrificing your personal for communal progress, the more you're going to feel at peace, which is the signature of the manifestor, right? Do you put a high value on peace, Tomasa?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to go
And
back.
I would say that's pretty accurate that, the more I sacrifice my own personal gain for humanity, I always say I'm here to help heal the earth, heal the planet,
Yeah.
make the world a better
totally.
place for everyone.
That's right. That's right.
I'm very clear about that.
Let's look at what you're talking about. So we know that the personality sun makes up 70% of the chart, right? And you're here to, in a sense, and remember, it's in your personality. So it isn't about you, Tomasa, have to sacrifice. You're teaching people. Whenever we're talking about the personality, this sits here, right? So this is basically the curriculum you teach. I have my clients make courses out of these gates and lines, because that's basically what you're teaching on a genetic level. That's what you're teaching are those gates and lines and those planets. And so you're teaching people the no or the negative side of progress. You're teaching the no. You're saying it's, you know, it's fine to make communal progress, but you're going to have to sacrifice certain personal things, right? Like stability, like maybe consistent money sometimes. You know, you can look to your own history for that. So just know it isn't so much about turning it back to you, Tomasa. That's the tough thing with a person. It's not who you are, it's who you think you are, right? So you're teaching people about the downsides of progress. That's your magic. Right? You even said it earlier. You know, the first thing you mentioned when I said, you know, what is shamanism to you? And you talked about helping people get in touch with their shadow, their disowned parts, you know, going back to you getting to the root of suffering, which is their disowned parts. But you're actually asking people to make a sacrifice. And in terms of business and money, one of the things I would encourage you to do, because you're a manifestor, you can just manifest like that, is inform people that you're no longer going to work with people who are ambivalent about making the sacrifices. See how I'm saying this? Making the sacrifices they need to make because they're just dilettantes and they can fuck right off. Now that energy is for you. You're too nice. Okay. Don't be nice.
Okay.
That's what's holding you back. Shamans
I don't know. I'm not always nice. They'll tell you.
I know. But what I'm saying to you is you have your branding, right, as the closet light workers. And what I want to say to you is no. You're calling in the people who aren't hiding anymore. Okay. Like they're not going to hide anymore, because if they are doing that game, it doesn't serve you, because this is a tough position in personality, because it isn't warm and fuzzy. That's why I'm channeling it that way. It's like I'm inviting you to just turn it the other way and say to people, if you're hiding in the closet and you think maybe you want to do spiritual stuff, go away. Okay. Not interested. But if you're willing to actually be what you say you want to be, give me a call. Okay. You might get less calls, but they'll be the people that enroll. You know? Okay. Because you have a lot of openness in your chart. You can't trust your mind. You have an undefined G center, so you're never going to be really solid in your identity. You're a shapeshifter. You know, undefined G center is a shapeshifter. Shifter. Okay. Right? I don't shapeshift. People shapeshift around me. It's different. Right? See, these things are different. It's the differentiation, right? So, but you can shapeshift and you can read someone's direction. You can read where they're on or off the mark. Right? Yeah, but with true. You having the down arrow in personality sun, you're teaching people what stops progress. Self-indulgence, waffling, not being committed. You're committed. You're willing to even suffer financial stress to not give up on your purpose. Right. So you're being tested too. And for you, it makes a great story, ultimately. But that's the first thing I would say to you is just shift your come from to more takeaway selling, more no, rather than an invitation, because the kind of work you're inviting people into, it is not to be dabbled in, even a little bit. Playing with fire, and that will upset the gods. It really will. So that's the first thing. And now the next thing with business, let's go over to your design Mars. You also got another down arrow there. So here's the thing: the down arrow. Ra said when he was writing this, Ra Orohu, who downloaded Human Design, he said when he was writing the line companion, he regretted calling the up arrow attribute and the down arrow detriment, because it's really this or that. It's yes or no. It's yin or yang. So when I see a down arrow, I go, oh, you're teaching the no. The down arrow is where you have to have excessive attention, be very alert. Be very, very, very discerning. Yeah. So you have gate 31, the voice of influence, in line 4 as your vocation, because Mars is the energy that we have, right? So design Mars is your body's energy, and personality Mars is our emotional energy we share with others. And you have that very, very positively, which we'll get to on the personality side. So your desk work, as I like to call it, in Design Mars, is to be a speaker. to a community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speaking, this is speaking, and this is speaking. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, you don't have the gate 7, right? So you have to be invited to speak about influence. You don't have to be invited to speak with this channel of transitoriness. Gate 36 down here off the solar plexus is crisis. And it connects up to 35, which is progress, right? So there you can inform people when you feel it is correct to inform them. But over here, it's a projected gate. So the invitation to be the alpha, you have to be asked. And you have to be in a community that understands what you're saying. You can't push for influence in that position. That's what's tough about it. The influence kind of it comes to you. It comes to you over time. And the other thing in your business is you work well in a partnership. And it's in gate 36. So it's very likely a romantic partnership, like working with a partner.
Okay.
The thing that's tough is over here, you have 59 too, which is shyness. So it's, even though you're a manifestor, I mean, you can inform the person, hey, would you like to I'd like to invite you to coffee. You can inform them. But in romance, you can't be pursued. It won't work.
I can't be pursued.
No, you're not here to be pursued. There's nothing feminine about this. Right? See, femininity isn't about gender. It's not about sexuality. It's about frequency. Right? You have a manifestor chart. It's the energy of a ruler. So if you wait around to be pursued, you wait around to ask, nothing happens for you. You just go, everything goes nowhere. You just spin around. Right? So if you want to date someone, you got to ask them out. You have to pursue the relationship. Yep. I mean, following your emotions, of course. It's like timing. It's good you have to take your time with people, and you are very shy. Mars in 59 line 2 is a very powerful, influential energy. This is your personality, Mars. So emotionally, you're meant to be shy. Right. And kind of wait for that right emotional timing. But when it comes to romance and getting what you want in life, if we are to believe in human design, you're the one that has to inform people. Right? So if you try to play some feminine mental conditioned thing, it's not going to work for you. You'll end up with the wrong people.
Okay.
Yeah. There's not much in your chart about asking for permission. There just isn't. Yeah. Okay. Now, how are we doing on time? Okay, we got 3 minutes before I have another call today. Okay. You have gate 21. And I just want to point to this because it's in your personality, Jupiter, 21 line 5. So this is the exaltation of gate 21, the huntress. And the huntress can also be the warrior, the helper to the gatherer. It's good if you have your own business, with gate 21. You do not have a defined ego, which is true. And you have there's 2 main shaman channels in the chart. One of them does come off the ego, gate 51. And that is the gate of shock. And it connects to universal love. But the other shaman channel is this channel of sensitivity that connects gate 19 to 49. And you have gate 49, which is the revolutionary. So you're very, very sensitive to the needs of others. And you have that in line 5. So helping end hunger. This is a chart of someone that does a lot of charitable works. It's, I mean, it's, you're a bit of a saint. I hate to break it to you, but, and you got a 5th line over here in Pluto, and you got a 5th line in Venus. Right. And then you got 2 5th lines up here. So you get a ton of projection.
I do.
Right. Right. Where people can expect some really outrageous things from you. But if I was to encourage you around money, it's that you're meant to work with people one-to-one. You can broadcast to the masses. It's kind of like, yes, this is a chart of someone that needs to speak to her community, speak from stage, have a podcast, whatever, be on podcast. But the actual work is about helping that man or woman who is in a deep crisis, and it's probably affecting them sexually. Like maybe they committed infidelity, or they're dealing with spousal abuse, right? And, you know, or being scammed, anything like that. But like these big crises. Yeah. And your business structure works best when you work in partnership with that client. Now, that being said, one other thing I want to leave you with, I know I jumped around here, but if you rewatch this, you'll see the structure. You're a mountains active person. And you have gate 56, the adventurer, and you have 35, progress. This, you know, left angle cross of separation. I mean, you are here to, in a sense, move, be on the move, seeing things from different points of view, because that's what mountains people do. They see things from different, all levels of the building, right? All levels of the mountain. You have a line 3 in your environmental nodes. And so what this means is that your environment, this mountain's environment, is going to be very much about, now you're in your north node, 56, line 3, your money comes from your storytelling. From storytelling and writing. Yep. And you may also live with family or be close to family. Like that's the healthiest environment for you to be in. You know, is like with a small group of people. You don't want to be isolated, but you also don't want to have a lot of people around you. And I'll stop here. Did you have any questions for me?
No, I mean that's interesting. So no closet light workers, people who know they're light workers and they want to step into it. So and
well,
then
it's not that they
one-on-one,
can't be,
but not group, huh?
It's not that they can't be closet, because you do have gate 53, which is initiation, which is the beginning. So they can be beginners. That's absolutely okay. But there has to be a willingness, because of the intensity of your chart. There has to be a willingness that they, like, your motivations need. So they need to get out of that job. And you're the one that can pass judgment on how they can get out of the job.
That job.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing for you to avoid is fear. You're not here to dwell in any kind of fear. And your view is personal. So you're meant to share the very unique way that you see things with the world. The way you share, it's less about directing others and more about telling us your story. You know, and I think the biggest challenge for all 5 ones is being vulnerable and telling your story. So I want to share with everyone just real quick before we go. I will share Tomasa's information below, but you can join her. She will be speaking in St. George, Utah on March the 14th at an energy healing conference. And there'll be another one in Layton, Utah, June 19th through the 20th. Her topic is Rewire Your Energy, Rewrite Your Life. And I will put the link below if you want to find out more. She also has a master checklist for light workers. That will be in the description, along with her programs and other offerings. Tomasa, is there anything you want to say before we go today?
The only thing I tell people is to live their highest potential, and to live your highest potential is aligning yourself with your cosmic blueprint.
Yeah. Thank you. And just start telling people they need to work with you. And
you
charge a lot of money, because they're going to work with you one-to-one.
Right.
Right. So you're probably undercharging, would be my guess. But it's not inexpensive.
Myself, so.
What's that?
I just upgraded myself, so I don't know about that.
Good. Well, I'm glad. Yeah. So we will continue chatting at some point. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, this is fun.
This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.